Let's do it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. Got a good show for you today. I don't mean good news. I definitely don't mean good news. ICE has acquired missiles, because why not? Let's discuss what it is ICE is going to be doing with missiles. We're going to get into that, as well as other weapons they're acquiring. Going to get into that. Going to also be talking about Trump's shadow president, the guy behind the scenes. Some of you may know his name. Most of you may not know his name yet. He is not really talked about, and they're calling him the shadow president. The man actually coming up with this, so much of the intricate little sleazy details of this horror show. We're going to talk about that from ProPublica. ProPublica. I like to say ProPublica. I don't know if it's ProPublica. I don't know which. I don't know what they prefer in their little language, but I like ProPublica. Sounds kind of European. I could say ProPublica, but that sounds wrong in so many ways. Also, later in the show, I've got activist educator Nikki Morse, who you're gonna love hearing from Nikki. Nikki is awesome, and excited to have them on the show. All right, let's do it. Click thumbs up, click share, throw in a comment whether you got anything to say or not. Sometimes it might help the algorithm that fucking hates me, but it might. Let's talk about how ICE has acquired missiles. This is from Real News Network. Trump's ICE jacks up. I like how they say Trump's ICE. In case you were worried about it, in case you were wondering which ICE it was, which roided out, armed to the gills lunatics is my ICE? It's Trump's ICE. Oh, okay. Trump's ICE jacks up weapons spending by 700%, including guided missile warheads. At least they're guided. At least they have guidance. I'm glad to hear ICE missiles have guidance. New reporting on Monday detailed just how much U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has spent on weaponry since Donald Trump took office. Weapons that have been purchased as the administration has turned federal agents on U.S. cities such as Chicago and Portland, illustrating how the president is treating increasingly armed ICE officers as his private military. And essentially, if your city has a black Democratic mayor, then that you are screwed. That's who he's coming after. You do not want to have a black Democratic mayor, because those are the ones that are getting assaulted with military weaponry. Judd Legum at Popular Information recently delved into government contracting records from the Federal Procurement Data System and found that ICE has increased its spending on small arms, ordnance, and ordnance accessories manufacturing by 700% this year compared to 2024 numbers. You thought they weren't roided and armed enough, huh? But no, they've increased it. The agency spent over $71 million, $71.5 million on small arms from January 20, the day Trump began his second term, through October 18. The number dwarfs ICE's, I believe it's little persons. The number little persons ICE's spending during the first Trump term, during which the agency spent about $8.4 million annually on small arms. ICE used to spend $8 million on small arms. Now it's $71 million on arms and missiles. And I like that they call it small arms, because Trump, as we know, small arms and hands. He's like a T-Rex. It's adorable. During President Joe Biden's administration, it was $8.4 million. While most of the agency's spending was on guns and armor, there have also been significant purchases of chemical weapons and guided missile warheads and explosive components. Many of you have probably heard me say this before, but just a reminder that if you're using chemical weapons, don't do it internationally, because that is a war crime. But if you'd like to use chemical weapons, use them on your own people. That is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Totally cool under the law to chemical weapon your own people. However, Internationally, that's against the Geneva Convention. I like that they threw that loophole in there. You feel like when they were coming up with these laws of the Geneva Conventions, they were like, okay, how about you can't just throw like some white dust that kills everyone? That's a bad thing. Let's have that be illegal. Absolutely. We can still do that to our own people, though, right? Like, because I got some people at home I'd like to do that to, and they were like, yeah, I guess. I mean, we're really only talking about international stuff. So, yeah, you could. Yeah, why not? Why not gas your own people? Absolutely. Let's see. ICE and other immigration agencies continue to deploy armed, masked agents in major Democratic leaning U.S. cities. Sally Duvall, a Texas state House candidate in last year's election, said she was curious to know why ICE needs guided missile warheads. Were you curious, Sally? I'm curious too why ICE would need guided missile warheads. I mean, can anyone, I'd be interested to hear what you say in the chat. Can anyone come up with a scenario which ICE is using guided warheads? Even if, and we know they're assaulting innocent people, they're assaulting U.S. citizens, they're assaulting all kinds of people. But even if ICE were legitimately going after an actual undocumented immigrant gang, like a real one, not a made up one, like a real one, would they use missiles? Like what scenario is ICE using missiles? I can't even picture it. Legume's analysis, which likely understated total spending on weapons by Trump's deportation forces, as it did not include spending by other anti-immigration agencies. Yes, as you know, there are many agencies that have been doing anti-immigration work, or racist get the non-white people work, which is important. You got to have that in a country. I mean, if you want to be a legitimate Western country, you got to have some good anti or pro get the non-white people actions going on. But it's not just ICE, right? It's been done. Stuff's been done by DHS. Stuff's been done by police officers in general. Stuff, anti-immigrant stuff's been done by the National Guard. So this spending that she's talking about is only ICE. Is just talking about ICE. If the immigration enforcement apparatus of the apparatus of the United States were its own national military, it would be, does anyone want to guess what number in the world military it would be if immigration enforcement apparatus of the United States were its own military, were a country? What would it be ranked of militaries in the world? It would be the 13th most heavily funded military in the world. That's just our anti-immigrant shit. Is the 13th most funded military in the world. This puts just our anti-immigrant army among national militaries ahead of, more spending than Poland, Italy, Australia, Canada, Turkey, and Spain, and just barely below Israel. That's how much we spend on going after innocent people because they don't have a little piece of paper that makes them a real person. Real people have this piece of paper. It's funny. If you do a little bit of reading and you actually think about these things, you'll eventually realize that nationalism and borders are a brain parasite that make you think that imaginary things are real. I think yesterday or the other day I mentioned the floor is lava. It's like if you were playing a game of the floor is lava. Why is it lava? Because I thought about it in my head. Why is that line there on that country? Because I thought about it in my head. It's a thing I just decided. You over there, fucking garbage. Me. And over here, we're the real people. Big John over on Rumble just donated $10. Thank you for supporting the show, Big John. Really appreciate it. All of you who throw in a couple of bucks on Super Chats, it really does make a difference. So thank you so much. You guys really are the only reason this show continues. My work continues. The suppression, as you have heard me mention many times, Just keeps getting larger and larger every day. And the latest thing, or one of the latest things, I don't know if it's the latest. it's been about 2 weeks. Rad Indie Media, the news site that Eleanor Goldfield and I created, that makes $0. It's not a money-making venture. It literally just costs us money, but it was just a way to show you guys all the important news from independent media that's being put out around the webs, around the inner tubes. radindiemedia.com has been under a massive attack. That's the latest thing to be done to us. A massive attack against Rad Indie Media. So strong, apparently. And I don't have a brain for this stuff, okay? I'm not a coding guy. I'm not a video game guy. It's not where my brain, it's not how my brain works. So forgive me for not knowing all the details, but it's been under such an aggressive attack that, like, the provider, which was in another country, just shut down the whole site and told us, yeah, we don't really want to deal with this anymore. Like, this was a large-scale company that has a lot of websites, and they were like, whatever is going on at your site, we just can't handle it. It's sucking resources from our entire company, and we can't handle fighting it. So so they just shut down Rad Indie Media, and they were like, we don't want it. We don't want it anymore. So we are rebuilding. And if you go there now, there is something. There's kind of like a temporary site. It doesn't have quite the look of the original, but we're recreating it. We're going to recreate something that hopefully has more defenses against this large scale attacks. And anyway, you can go over there and support radindiemedia.com. You can support it just by using it, just by going over there and using it as a source for your news. But as you'll see, it's not up to par right now. It doesn't have images. It's just headlines. There it is right there. It's just headlines for now, but we're hoping to have a version soon that has the images back, etc. And anytime you use it or tell people about it, that of course supports Rad Indie Media as well. Okay, let's move on to again, I'll just remind everybody, I got an awesome guest for the second half of this show. Nikki Morse will be joining us. But before we get to that, let's talk about the shadow president. And I think, if you know anything about Donald Trump, you know that he's not paying attention in meetings. If people across from him are talking, he's not taking in the information because it's not him. It's people talking that aren't him, so they don't matter. So you know that there's got to be a whole teams of people that are the ones that are like doing the legal work, writing the documents, figuring out the numbers, all that shit. Sometimes they're not, and you'll notice that just crazy negligence in the Trump administration, so that goes on too. But this guy has never written anything longer than a tweet. That is it. Not to mention, even if he were the one writing if he wrote the bill for Congress, the big, beautiful bill, if he had any part of that, you would see all caps through the entire document, just no punctuation. The man can't read. Like, you understand that. Reading is a real issue for him, like when he tried to say acetaminophen, that was a fucking catastrophe. Oh, you could see him. He got halfway through it. Asada Shakur, Asita, and you just sweat coming down, sweating like a priest at a daycare. He was hitting that word. That was his nightmare trying to say acetaminophen. The man can't read, barely read. And so it's somebody else doing all of this shit. Who is it? Well, some of it's Stephen Miller. The anti-immigrant shit is definitely Stephen Miller. That's one playing a big role. But here's the other shadow president making loads of these decisions, many of them that Trump doesn't even know about. He knows that it's what Trump would have wanted, but he doesn't. It's just him doing it. This is from ProPublica. What you should know about Russ Vought, Trump's shadow president. Russ Vought, the president's top budget advisor, More than that, Vogt is the architect of Trump's broader plan to fire civil servants, freeze government programs, and dismantle entire agencies. And he's a big reason the second Trump administration has been more effective at accomplishing its goals than the first. And it is definitely like Trump's gutting of the government and kind of everything that helps people. You know, he's not gutting the things that harm people. He's not gutting ICE or the police or the military or all that's got more money than ever. Anything that might help people, like food stamps, public education, Social Security, medical care subsidies, healthcare subsidies, anything might help people. He has been far more effective at gutting it this second term than he was in the first term. And that apparently is thanks to Russ Vought. Vogt's title is Director of the Office of Management and Budget. The OMB directorship is one of the most powerful jobs in Washington. And Vought has used this position to wage a quiet war to change the shape of the entire U.S. government. In Vought's hands, OMB has acted as a choke point for the funding that Congress approves and agencies rely on to run the government. While he tends to operate behind the scenes as much as possible, his influence in Trump's second administration is so pronounced that people have described him as a shadow president. And it's not mentioned in this article, but I did mention Vought the other day in that this government shutdown that we're in the middle of. David Dayen made the point that we've been in a shutdown really for months before this because Trump, through the OMB, through Vought, has not been releasing the funds that go to things like clean energy. Now, the U.S. does a pathetic job on clean energy, but there is what would be considered, in respect to our budget as a nation, would be a minimal little amount of money that goes to clean energy. That wasn't going out, just as one example. So these are things that were approved by Congress already. And the OMB wasn't releasing the funds to do anything Trump didn't want to do, which is supposed to be illegal. Trump's now fighting it. It's going up to the Supreme Court to basically say he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to send money to anything that Congress has approved. Now, of course, that goes against everything that our government has established over hundreds of years, which is Congress is supposed to be the ones that decide the budget. Congress has very little power nowadays. They've just allowed all of their power to drift away like dandelion spores. But they've kept the power of the purse strings, supposedly. And yet here you have Trump saying, I know Congress told me to spend that money. I don't feel like it. I don't like clean energy. I don't like food stamps. I'm not sending that money out. Well, that's Vought. That's OMB. Vought helped, so they go into his past to explain where he came from. Vought helped launch an offshoot of the Heritage Foundation think tank called Heritage Action for America, which was tasked with strong-arming congressional Republicans to act more conservatively. Basically, they're upset that Republicans aren't being Republican enough. Quote, this is a quote from a former Capitol Hill colleague. I think he thought the Republican leadership was a bigger impediment to conservative causes than Democrats were. While the office of OMB is part of the White House, Vought is a member of Trump's cabinet, along with the Secretary of Defense and Attorney General. I guess they're just explaining what a cabinet member is. Every penny appropriated by Congress first passes through the OMB. It also reviews all significant regulations proposed by federal agencies, vets executive orders before the president signs them, and issues workplace policies for more than 2 million federal employees. And you got to remember that with each one of those things, Trump's not looking at them. Now, this is to imagine that you want Trump to look at them, which I don't know why you would. I don't know, like what is Trump going to add to anything? But that's positive. So, but supposedly these are supposed to be Trump's decision, but Trump's not going through these documents. Give a shit. He's like, basically they hand him a document. They're like, here's federal workplace regulations. And he's like, is this about me? And they're like, no, it's about federal workplace regulations. And he's like, so it's not about me. And they're like, no. And he's like, he just slowly hands it back and walks away, or maybe drops it. He might just drop it and walk away. Those are the two options, I think, in most of those cases. In 2019, after the Trump White House pressured Ukraine to investigate then candidate Joe Biden and his son Hunter, by the way, that was all one of the few things Trump did that was legitimate. I mean, it was fucking corruption that Hunter was on the board of an energy company getting $50,000 a month in Ukraine. Anyway, just saying. The White House pressured Ukraine's government to investigate Joe Biden and his son. They asked Vogt, who was then acting director, so he was on the OMB last administration as well, to freeze $214 million in congressionally approved security assistance for Ukraine. Vogt obliged. It's called impoundment, which is what's in front of the Supreme Court right now. That impoundment was later deemed illegal, and it would trigger congressional investigations and ultimately Trump's first impeachment. But, you know, he's had so many, but no, he's had a few. So really but that was the first, which your first one's always special. It's like having kids. First one's always special. After that, it's like you did the thing, right? Would trigger congressional investigations and ultimately Trump's first impeachment. During that process, Vogt refused to cooperate with investigators. Oh, what a loyal soldier. What a ball-licking loyal soldier. This guy. Do you think he has a chair at his desk, or does he just do it on his knees? You think all of his work just on his knees in front of Trump? In 2021, Vogt launched the Center for Renewing America, a think tank devoted to keeping the MAGA movement alive and preparing for a second Trump term. Vogt accepted an assignment from Trump to come up with a way for conservatives to counter Black Lives Matter, or really just counter Black lives. He popularized the concept of, quote, woke and weaponized government, a phrase embraced by GOP politicians. And you'll notice if you watch like Fox News or any of these people, or fucking Bill Maher, these right-wingers, some of them pretend to be liberals like Bill Maher. But if you watch these right-wingers, they say woke and weaponized, or weaponized woke agenda, or what they say it like every other sentence. It's their favorite thing. So he's the one who came up with that. Isn't that awesome? That's like the Republican person of being the guy that came up with banger. You know, you're the first person to say banger. Wow, man. I came up with woke and weaponized. That was my thing. Yeah. Pretty cool. I got t-shirts that say it and everything, man. In 2017, while an advisor at OMB, Vogt played a lead role in trying to implement a Trump executive order that called for a top-to-bottom reorganization of the federal government. A former OMB senior staffer said Vogt initially wanted to eliminate USAID, which, by the way, one of the few things that Trump has done that I support. Because if you understand what USAID is and you actually read up on it, it's a CIA offshoot. That's all. Yes, it gave aid to other countries in order to try and create coups there. That was its job. Anyway. And also to fold the Department of Education and the Department of Housing and Urban Development, along with food stamps, into a new Department of Welfare. They wanted to call it that because they thought it sounded bad. Basically, they wanted to put all those things into something called welfare to make it easier to gut that, because it's easier to explain to the American public we're gutting welfare than we're gutting housing or we're gutting education. It's just a better, in terms of propaganda, it's better to say we're gutting welfare. Vogt's suggestion now read like a guide for the second Trump administration, which has gutted both of those things, or all of those things. Vogt was a key figure in the work of Project 2025. You remember that? The coalition of conservative groups that created a roadmap and recruited future appointees for the next administration. He led 2025's transition portion, which included writing some 350 executive orders. Again, he's doing the writing. Trump can't read or spell. So, of course, someone else was doing it, and it was Mr. Shadow President, ironically named Vogt. Regulations and other plans to more fully empower the president. During the 2024 campaign, Trump repeatedly claimed to have nothing to do with Project 2025. The administration has moved quickly to fulfill all of Project 2025's policy objectives. Court records, interviews, and other accounts from people close to Vogt show that Doge's efforts were guided more than previously known by Vogt. So even though most people thought it was Elon Musk, and Elon Musk was definitely the face of it. He definitely was pivotal. He definitely had a lot of say in what Doge was doing in those early months. Apparently, Vogt was the guy on the ground really making a lot of these calls. Quote, I can't imagine that the Doge team knew to target all these little parts of the government without Russ Vogt pointing them there, said one branch chief. An administration official who has worked with Vogt and Musk told ProPublica that Doge showed Vogt that it was possible to ignore legal challenges and take dramatic action. He has the benefit of Elon softening everyone up. It's lovely when like two sociopaths get together and they can learn from each other. Like, that's beautiful. Like, it's like that scene, I think it was in Jurassic Park, but it's also in a lot of, documentaries that show dinosaurs, where the mom T-Rex kind of nudges the baby T-Rex to go like rip the throat out of a dying koala bear or whatever. It's like that. That's kind of what went on with Elon Musk and Vogt. It looked a lot like that as well. Vogt has frozen $26 billion in federal funding for infrastructure and clean energy projects in blue states in the days after the federal government shutdown. So basically, during the shutdown, he has frozen these billions and billions of dollars of funds, mainly in blue states or maybe exclusively in blue states, just as like a punishment. Just like, the government's closed, so we're not sending those out. But as David Dayen pointed out, most of these were frozen, like they weren't going out before. They hadn't stated that it was frozen before the government shut down, but they weren't really getting where they were supposed to go anyway, these funds. The government has also followed through on Vogt's earlier threat to fire a massive number of civil servants if the shutdown were not averted. So there you go. Some details on what many are calling the shadow president. And again, when you can't read or write, you need a shadow president to be coming up with a lot of this stuff. And Trump has one. Trump has a few, I feel like, honestly. Okay, we're going to move on to our awesome guest. But everybody, it'd be great if you could click thumbs up, click share, click subscribe, all those things. I have a new article, a new column over at Substack, if you'd like to check it out. I range, day to day I range, but the other day I was 29 in Rising World Political Writers, number 29 on Substack. So you guys can help me keep growing. I just posted this a few minutes before I started here, and it's titled, Can We Stop Celebrating that Trump Only Committed 9 months of genocide? That is, what a celebration we should give him for only committing 9 months of genocide. I mean, what a wonderful man. Really impressive. He's a peacemaker. He's a true peacemaker is what he is. Anyway, go check out that column. Hopefully you'll share it. That's realleecamp.substack.com. I am upwards of 70% sure I got that right. realleecamp.substack.com. That's where it is. You can follow over there. Also, I'm giving away a free month at leecamp.net. If you go sign up, you go to leecamp.net, scroll down to become a supporter. And then you got to change when you first arrive on the next page, it says $60 a year or something. Change it to monthly, and then use promo code LeeCampFree, all one word, and you'll get a free month. Someone emailed me because they didn't understand that they had to click monthly instead of annual or whatever. So that's at leecamp.net. Use promo code or coupon code LeeCampFree, all one word, all caps. Okay. Let's keep it moving, and thank you to everybody who's showing up in the chat. Okay, I'm so excited to have this guest here, Nikki Morse, an educator, an anti-Zionist Jew who volunteers with the International Solidarity Movement and does abolitionist work against prisons in the U.S. We're going to talk about that and their work in the occupied territories of Palestine as well. Please welcome Nikki.
Hey, Lee, great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, thanks for your column. It's been just, the only reason to praise Trump right now is in comparison to Biden, to show that Biden could have done more. Other than that, Hollis, none
In
of this.
comparison to Biden, and also in comparison to the first 9 months of Trump. Like,
Good point. Good point.
he could
Yes.
have done this for 9 months. There's no indication that anything changed other than Trump deciding that he wanted this to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, let's start with I definitely want to talk about your prison work, and the album is amazing. But let's start with your visits to and what you were involved in the occupied territories in the West Bank. And I want you to tell everybody about it, but it is not just brave, but it's so fascinating. I think a lot of the aspects of what's going on right now in the West Bank are just so foreign to people. There's almost zero coverage of it because Gaza is so horrific. But even prior to October 7th, there was kind of zero coverage in the United States of this stuff. So yeah, can you talk about your trip there?
Absolutely. And thanks again for giving me this opportunity. I've gone to the West Bank twice now with the International Solidarity Movement. And the International Solidarity Movement is a Palestinian led organization, not exactly an organization, actually, certainly not organized enough to call ourselves an organization, but a solidarity movement that brings internationals to the occupied territories to provide protective presence, accompaniment, and to witness what's happening. And that's not to kind of witness in a sort of emotional, like, here we are witnessing way, but literally to document and spread the word, because as you said, there's been such a strong media blackout on what's happening in the West Bank. Though, of course, it's starting to get better as more and more people around the world care about Palestine, but the mainstream news has not caught up to that. So one of the things that we're very focused on is telling the story of what we witness, what we experience, and what Palestinians are going through on the ground as they resist. And in the West Bank right now, it's resisting ethnic cleansing by staying put. And that seems so simple, and yet it's so incredibly difficult with the ways that settlers and the army work together hand in hand to harass people and violently drive them out. So that's the role of internationals, is to be there with passport privilege, to be there documenting, being visibly, international, many of us white, but not all, and show that the world is watching. Now, that's a tactic that has its limitations with a country that seems determined to embrace pariah status. Although it seemed like maybe Trump wanted to halt that move towards pariah status, and that was part of what inspired his whim to stop the genocide, or pause the active bombing, because as we know, the genocide is continuing, including through starvation and illness. Anyway, all this to say that what we end up doing on the ground is spending time with families, going out with shepherds, being present, and hopefully our presence deterring attacks.
Yeah, so describe, I mean, some people may be familiar with this, but I think a lot of people don't understand the type of attacks that are going on by settlers backed up by the IDF. And also, I would like you to endorse my effort to come up with a more threatening sounding name than settler, because I think it sounds so euphemistic. I think we need to go with land pillagers or something. But
well, we haven't gone that far. It's a worthy endeavor. One of the things that we've been discussing more and more for ISM's media is using the term colonizers. I think settlers, as you said, it doesn't always sound as violent as it is. And it raises some questions, which I guess colonizers does as well, about whether we're differentiating between people who are living in settlements that are illegal under international law, but legal under Israeli law, settlers who are living in settlements that are completely illegal under Israeli law as well, or the settlers, who are living in Tel Aviv, et cetera. And then what about all of us? Here I am, a settler on Piscataway and Susquehannock land in the Baltimore area. So yeah, what is the term, that can really express the specificity of these particular people who are, often imagined in the world media as the worst of the worst. And so they sort of excuse the rest of the settler colonial project, again, not just the Zionist settler colonial project, but settler colonialism more broadly, because if they're the worst of the worst, then the rest of us aren't so responsible. But what these
Right.
attacks look like, is, they're horrific. I have not personally faced some of the worst of the violence when I've been there. What ends up happening in some of the more extreme attacks is often that settler youth will be armed with bats, clubs, or metal pipes, and will use those to assault people. There was also the horrific murder of Auda Hathaleen, a longtime community organizer in Khair, which is in Massaferyata, the community that is featured in No Other Land, the Oscar-winning documentary. And Auda was shot by a settler who had been sanctioned by the US until Trump's first day in office, when he lifted that sanction. So, it's vigilante violence, it's extrajudicial killings, it's something that, you could describe as a pogrom. Recently, there was an attack on people harvesting olives, where an elderly woman was beaten until she was hospitalized in critical condition. I believe she's still in the hospital. And some of the ISM volunteers who were there, as well as international reporters, described it as a lynch mob. So it's a level of violence that, again, we can't allow the horror of it to excuse, the legitimate violence of the state in bombing, et cetera. But it is the kind of thing where one expects, when you hear about something like that the police or the army would be attempting to control it. And instead, what often happens is that the soldiers simply stand by, they simply watch. Or in a case that I did experience, I was staying with a family who were resisting displacement in a small village, and the army came in the morning and they told the family, the settlers are going to try something soon. We won't be able to stop it. You have to leave. So basically threatened the family. And then in the middle of the night, the settlers came, woke us up, said, your time is almost up. And then a few days later, the army came and raided the family's home. One move after another, until not just that family, but every family in that village has now left. So over the course of about 3 to 4 months, the settlers and the army together were able to clear out an entire village.
Yeah, so that's the aim, is to clear out these villages and to make it so miserable to live there. I mean, each night people coming in, and you never know what's going to happen. You never know what might be done to you or your children or your other family members. And so your goal, and those who are working with you, is these settlers, these violent land pillagers, are less likely to commit some of these acts if there's a American or a white person there?
Well, that's the hope. And again, not even necessarily American or white, though, of course, that does make you more visible. The being white is more visible as an international, or just our fashion sense makes us visible as internationals, but our lack of fashion sense.
Mhm.
And then the thing about passport privilege is that legally, people who are international are in a unique context, because unlike Israeli activists, and there are a lot of Israeli activists, or some of them prefer to be called Hebrew speakers because they don't identify with the Israeli state, anti-Zionist Jewish activists who are doing this kind of work. But of course, they face particular kinds of challenges because they can then be subject to criminal prosecution in ways that internationals are deported, and there's been more and more effort among the settlers or the colonizers or the land pillagers to try to deport internationals as quickly as possible. Now, the thing is, we can't guarantee that it works, because clearly, as I described, though we had international presence, the village of Ibzik was emptied this summer. On the other hand, there are days where nothing happens. And those days are the days when a family is able to, like right now, harvest some olives, or in the summer, take the sheep out. Make sure that they're able to do some chores. The kids are able to walk to school. And so, on a day-to-day level, making one day a little better does enable people to resist displacement a little longer. And certainly the Palestinian communities want international presence there and want more people there. So if people are interested in getting involved with ISM, you can go to palsolidarity.org and fill out an application, palsolidarity.org. Because really, we would make a bigger difference if we had more numbers. There's only so much, that 2 or 4 internationals can do in the face of dozens of armed settlers. But in the past, when there were moments when the international presence was really able to reverse the displacement and ethnic cleansing, it was often when hundreds of people were able to come and work together to show solidarity with Palestinians who are, refusing to leave.
Is it tough to get in and out of the West Bank?
The challenge is entering 48, because Israel does not want people there who are interested in human rights, who do any kind of activism, who care about human rights. I'm not going to get too much into that here, but it's one of the things that we work to support volunteers on, so that they have the best chance of being able to do this work. But it's really telling, I think, if you have a regime that explicitly is going to bar someone from entering if that person has an interest in human rights.
Can you talk for a few minutes about, because I've talked about it plenty. I know that most of the viewers have heard my stances on being an anti-Zionist Jew in America, but I would love for you to talk for a few minutes about your experience, especially over the past 2 years, of trying to educate people and the efforts by Israel to get everyone to conflate being Jewish with supporting all of Israel's policies, etc.
Yeah. Oh, it was great to, get to know you. Every time I meet someone else who, understands the experience, it's so valuable, and it's something that's becoming more and more common. I remember when I first kind of emerged from Zionism in 2014 during, I believe that was Operation Protective Edge. It felt extremely isolating. There were so few people that I knew who were Jewish and critical of Israel. At the time, Jewish Voice for Peace was not anti-Zionist. My congregation, Tzedek Chicago, which is the largest anti-Zionist progressive congregation in the world, had not taken an anti-Zionist position, actually didn't exist yet. So, really the last 10 years have been this incredible period of growth for anti-Zionist Jewish voices and for people speaking out. But of course, we were able to do that because of decades and decades of organizing by people who were really in the wilderness. And all of that built on, years of anti-Zionist critique by Jews going back to the 1800s. So I find that legacy really helpful and really affirming. I think one of the things that has been most striking to me is just how committed to Judaism so many of the anti-Jewish activists I know are. Like, it's our Judaism and our history of growing up with the lesson that, never again is now, which sounds, cliche, but it really is an important lesson for, any moment. I'm reminded about what Aaron Bushnell said about, if you ever think about what you would have done in a particular historical moment, what you're doing right now, is the answer to that question. So anyway, I think for me, what's been really striking is recognizing that we, anti-Zionist Jews, are frightening because we're becoming louder, stronger, more visible, and we are deconstructing the idea that Judaism equals Zionism, to the point where, we're a real threat to that movement. we can see it in the way that they respond to us. The fact that, the first tenured professor to actually be fired over pro-Palestine speech is Jewish. The number of people who have faced, consequences. And for myself, I did have to leave a job because I was being investigated for anti-Semitism by non-Jews. And, this idea that it's the place of non-Jews, such as the president of the United States, to decide who is a good Jew and what it means to be a good Jew, horrifying. But yeah, most recently I was at a vigil. It was just a peace vigil with a group of people, most of whom were Jewish. And we had a group of really far right Zionists associated with Beitar, those scary people. They showed up.
Yeah.
And, the thing they kept yelling is, you've probably never even been to Israel. And I was able to say, like, I literally was there 2 months ago. I know exactly what I'm talking about. These were my experiences. And they shut up and they walked away, which is not something that usually happens with Zionists. But, in that moment, I could see that, their talking points are starting to break down. Now, it's too late for so many hundreds of thousands of people. But still, in this moment, if we are starting to end that ideological control, then hopefully that will make a difference in the long term for Palestinian liberation.
Yeah, I think the propaganda is failing more than it ever has. I want to shift topics because you do so much awesome work. Move over to the topic of abolitionism, the U.S. prison system, which you work with a great deal, and you did this amazing album of prisoners, making music, rapping, etc. from prison. And I want you to tell people about that, but also explain a little something about being an abolitionist.
Sure. I mean, it's almost the same question in some ways, as the question about being an anti-Zionist. And to me, these are really connected, obviously. In fact, I became an abolitionist shortly before I left Zionism, because once I started asking about the prison system, then I found that the people that I was hanging out with were all critical of Israel and pro-Palestine. And I was, horrified. I thought, they are just so ignorant, and I will do some reading and I'll explain to them, why they need to support Israel. And so, of course, having done some reading,
bad idea to do reading. It's always engine.
Oh, here we are. So yeah, I have been working on issues around prison abolition for also about 11 years now, and that emerged from my own experience of marrying someone when I was very young who had been a prison guard, and trying to figure out what fucked him up and how that had impacted my own life. And so that led me to prison abolition. And in that work, what's really, I think, particularly powerful for me in this moment, when I talk with incarcerated organizers, is that, they point out that what we are facing, in the so-called free world right now is what they have been facing for years. The suspension of law, the state of exception, the way that, nothing that is supposed to happen happens the way that it's laid out. And yet there's no way to appeal. All of the things that in the US we're grappling with under this new Trump administration, those are the systems that were tested out over decades on incarcerated people. And so they are the people who know how to fight this, how to survive it. And that's something that gives me a lot of strength. But with that work, I ended up helping start a jail hotline in 2020. The goal was to document medical neglect, find out what was happening in jails under COVID, because again, anything that the rest of us were facing, they were facing it so much worse.
The medical system, unsurprisingly, is insane in prison.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, as people are talking about the Palestinian prisoners released from Israeli jails, and they're talking about things like, folks who have lost their sight because of beatings they endured in Israeli prison. I have heard stories from people in US prisons, 3 different people in the Broward County jails where my organization works, who also have lost their sight due to beatings while they were in jail, when they were not convicted of anything. Not to say that anyone should be blinded because they were convicted of a charge, but jail is, pre-conviction. And yet, anyway, what can you do in the face of this? It's just so horrifying. And so as we were taking these reports, documenting medical neglect, we noticed that people would call in and say, oh, I want to share the hook I just wrote, or I have a new poem. And my collaborator, Noam Brown, who's a children's musician, was like, we could make an album. And it's so simple to say, but I mean, if he hadn't had that vision, it never would have happened. And then we started talking about it, telling people maybe we're going to make an album. We connected with Gary Field, who was incarcerated in Broward County Jail and just is a brilliant networker and visionary. He brought in some of the best talent in Broward County Jail. Broward County has a long history of nurturing rappers, partly because some leading figures like Kodak Black, YNW Melly are in and out of the jail. Also, they have severe restrictions on folks in the jail. They are not allowed radios. They're not allowed letters. So they make music to survive and to entertain each other and things like that. So here we were in 2022 with this idea, let's make an album. We thought in 6 months, maybe it'll cost $3,000. We'll do a fundraiser. We'll see what happens. And it took 3 years. It took way more money, a lot of grants. One of the things that I love as an educator and working in universities is being able to find opportunities to redirect institutional resources to artists, creators, activists, people doing the work that the university is invested in, at least in name and now hopefully in reality. And so what we ended up doing then was bringing people on board. About 50 folks submitted demos. We shared those demos with outside artists, beat makers, and producers. And in the end, we got 15 artists to produce tracks in partnership with outside collaborators. And the album is a little over an hour. It's 16 tracks long. It's on all the streaming platforms. I'm so incredibly proud of it. And actually just yesterday, one of the artist whose track is the first track on the album, Cash Dat, texted me that he's finally out of prison. So he just got out.
Nice.
And it's been incredible getting to know people and following their journey. Thanks for sharing the press. We're also, really proud of that. That was a new journey for Noam and Gary and me, but Gary just kept pushing and kept saying, what people want is get their voices out there. So, our mandate is to find a way to reach as many people as possible. So thank you, Lee, for this opportunity to share about Bending the Bars.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I've heard one of the songs and it was excellent. It really sounds great. I mean, it almost the way music is sounding these days, or certain kinds of music is sounding these days, that it although it is has to be recorded at a lower or different level because it's over a phone. It almost sounds like someone like a filter someone would add intentionally to, so it really doesn't sound like the music was compromised at all to put out this amazing album. And I'm showing some of the press, but I know they can find it. They can find everything on Linktree. Is it on regular streaming services or?
Yeah, it should be. It's on all the streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, etc.
Bending the Bars, right?
Yeah, Bending the Bars should find it. We're looking into options because right now there's no way to purchase the album. We should have set that up, but in the moment of trying to get this out, it was most straightforward to just release it to streaming. We were really lucky to have Eitan Brown of Clear Echo Sound, who did the mixing and mastering and made it so that, some of the inconsistent quality, some of the vocals that were recorded over the phone lines from jails and prisons blend in with the tracks that we were able to produce in the studio when people were out on pretrial release, things like that. And then we were lucky to work with Freer Music, which is the publishing arm of Freer Records, which used to be called Die Jim Crow Records. I really love that earlier name, but I guess people kept abbreviating it to Jim Crow Records, and they were like, nope. So Die Jim Crow became Freer Records, and they have an incredible catalog. So yeah, we were honored to be their first like external project that they distributed. And yeah, just like to be able to bring these tracks out into the world to people, we really had no kind of plan or restrictions on what people could write about. So some of the songs are about the system. To be honest, some of those are my favorites. They're really hard-hitting critiques. But then there's tracks that are about love, about loss, about joy. And I mean, I love those as well. And, it really, the goal was to not raise awareness of the problems in American incarceration, but to create something that would, through bringing people together, make us a small material impact on the lives of everyone involved towards, the ultimate goal of abolition. So we learned a lot of techniques of how to connect with people, how to communicate, how to track someone down when they disappear in the system. We managed to, share resources and support and sustain folks inside. And one of the ways we did that is that the project is unsanctioned. So there's lots of incredible music in prisons projects that are sanctioned by the facility. And so you get extra access or permission to enter, to work with people, to bring in instruments. All of that is amazing. Mm-hmm. But there are some limitations that come with that. And for us, we faced a different set of limitations, but those are the limitations that activists, organizers, loved ones face when trying to support folks who are inside. And so it felt like by figuring out how to overcome those hurdles, our phone lines were cut off by the jail for a period. We didn't have the ability to send in mail because of the mail ban. So we had to figure out how to navigate around that. All of those things. Now we have a set of tools and resources that we can share with other people.
Yeah, well, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, to give people on the inside who, might not have the ability to record, their passion and commit to something creative, and giving them that is just so valuable and so wonderful. And thank you for your efforts. And everyone should check out Bending the Bars.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
is there anywhere people can follow anything else?
Well, yeah. So Bending the Bars for the album, ISM Palestine on social media, on Instagram for ISM, and palsolidarity.org to join. And I guess I just want to add, the projects came together when a incredible cultural worker you may know, Eleanor Goldfield, connected me with an artist in Gaza who was able to produce illustrated portraits of two of the artists who had no photographs of themselves besides mugshots. We didn't want to use their mugshots. And so, yeah, it was beautiful to be able to connect, the U.S. incarceration system with, Palestinian liberation and that fight through having Ala, this fantastic artist, create these portraits to humanize these men who didn't have any images of themselves. And so, those kinds of opportunities, bringing people together, finding ways to bridge all of the gaps. I mean, all of the barriers that are set up. That was really what Bending the Bars is all about. Not breaking the bars, not ending them, yet, inshallah, one day, but bending them.
Well, thank you so much again, Nikki. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all your work.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate you too.
All right, Nikki Morse, so cool. And the album is Bending the Bars. Check it out. Okay, I'm going to, so a U.S. mercenary has exposed, who had direct connection to it, has exposed the CIA's creation of this farce of a narco cartel, a drug cartel that you trying to use against Venezuela. And this guy is speaking out. I'm going to bring you that story as an extra segment over on Locals. If you say, I'd like to see that segment, but I want it to be free, well, it can be. All you got to do is go to leecamp.net, scroll down, click Become a Supporter. And then when you're checking out, switch it to monthly. When you're checking out, use promo code LeeCampFree, all one word, all caps, and that will get you a month for free. So you could go join us right now over on Locals. This will also be on Patreon as well. So if you're watching over there, join us. And I'll see everybody on Locals and Patreon. Other than that, new Unredacted episode coming out tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope you'll join me for that. And another live stream, 3 p.m. Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Friday. So see you there. And don't forget, new column over at Substack. That's realleecamp.substack.com. Okay, to everybody who's refusing to accept your free month on Locals, I will see you later, but hopefully you'll consider joining up at leecamp.net using promo code LeeCampFree to get 1 month free. And to everybody else, I'll to everybody at Locals Patreon, I'll see you in a second. Just give me a